So while we're getting started here, right, just a couple questions for some interaction. We talked, Nicholas talked quite a bit about the value of your information to the bad actors, whether they're ransoming you, extorting you, selling the data. Anyone have a good idea what a social security number? Nicholas can't answer this. Social security number is worth on the dark web. The value of one of the most important pieces of information that we hold. $5. What else? Anybody else got an idea? 100? That's a good guess. It's a good guess because we think it's so valuable, right? On average, and you flashed up 10, there's a range, and typically they're selling large numbers, a couple of bucks, $3 to $5, $1 per social security number. It ranges quite a bit, but at the end of the day, it's not that valuable. It's not as much as some of the other things. What about a photocopy or a copy of a driver's license, passport, what we would call proof of existence? That seems like a big one, right? If we said social security number is only a few bucks, what about a digital scan of your passport? Somebody guess. $10. $10, yeah, $15, not a whole lot. I mean, you think about these things, we've done a good job in the industry starting the education process on how we protect our identity. And so some of these values are going down. I'll give you two more and then I promise I'll move on. What about a credit card? It's a credit card with all the information. We'll say they got zip code, they got the 3-digit code on the back and the date. Any guess? This is an interesting one from my perspective. It depends on balance. What the bad actors will do, they'll actually figure out the balance of that credit card and then sell it based on balance, $80 up, depending on that. Same thing with a online banking login information. So you think about these things, and medical records, the last one, we'll say that can range dramatically, starting at a couple $100, moving up to $1,000 per medical record because of the information on there. So when you think of a bad actor stealing 1 million social security numbers, that's some real money. That's real money, right? But what about 1 million medical records? We're talking about significant funds, significant money that these bad actors get paid. And the groups like Lazarus, Alpha, Lockbit, all these are huge organizations. We're going to talk a little bit about them as we talk about cyber insurance here in just a second. But I should have probably started out with who I am, right? Jim Peterson, Principal Solution Advisor of ConnectWise. Anybody heard of ConnectWise in the audience? Didn't think so, because nobody ever hears of us, right? We're kind of on the back end. We're a software company. We provide cybersecurity specific software. It's a company that's like UD&I. We partner with them, and we try to help educate and secure the communities that they work in. So our whole goal is all about cybersecurity. We do other things as well, but in today's world, we need to be we need to be a lot more vigilant with our cybersecurity. So I also do some training, and I live in South Bend, Indiana. That's enough about me. So we're here to talk about cybersecurity. And if we think back a little bit on what is cybersecurity, we would have defined this several years ago as a system of protecting systems and data, right? And that's still basically true. We're trying to defend and protect data, but at the end of the day, what we're really trying to do is protect people. Protect our teams, protect our clients, our communities, our suppliers, our vendors. By having our systems breach, we affect all of those one way or another. And so the whole goal of cybersecurity is looking at it as a larger solution. How do we protect everything in our business? How do we protect our revenue? How do we protect all of these things? And cybersecurity insurance is going to be a big piece of this. Who here has a known cybersecurity insurance policy today? You know you got one. Okay, we all put our hands down. If you don't have one, how about you sneak your hand up? Okay, that's all right. It's not surprising. A lot of places don't have it yet because they don't really quite understand it or they don't think they need it. And we'll kind of attack both of those today. It's okay. So if we're thinking about cybersecurity, right, the number one reason we talk about insurance is to say, hey, there's things you need to do to protect your environment so that the cyber insurance companies can say you are not enough of a risk that we can give you a policy, right? If you're doing things that are very risky, if you're a bad driver, what happens to your insurance premium, right? It goes up. If you get in a lot of accidents, your insurance premium goes up. Same thing for cyber insurance. If you're not doing the protective measures to cover your entity, they're either going to increase your rates or decline your policy. when we talk about what is good cyber protection, we typically talk about it in three terms, right? People, process, and technology. And holistically, we talk about it in reverse because it's a little easier, right? Technology are all the acronyms, the solutions we put in place to be the wall against you and the bad actors. The managed detection and response, which goes on our laptops so that it can find known and unknown threats that are going on live, behavior-based solutions. Our SIM, Security Information and Event Manager. I'm going to talk for a minute about that. It's the longest acronym we have because we add SOC to it. We have to add one more acronym onto that. But it's the software that sees the bad actors once they've gotten into your environment. Very hard to see in that world. And a bunch of other technologies. Technology is great. And when we deploy it, it works flawlessly all the time, right? But at the end of the day, all software decays over time. So we have to have processes. We have to have processes to make sure we're patching it, we're maintaining it, and we know what to do when something comes up. When that alert comes up, I have to have a process behind it to say, here's the steps I take. And obviously, we have to have the people, the teams that understand the processes to execute the technology and work. And it falls in a bunch of areas, right? Cybersecurity, data protection. Data protection is the new term for BCDR because cyber protection is all about securing your data. Data protection is all about making it recoverable. And a lot of times we're using that term BCDR a little too loosely. We're maybe not thinking about the long-term effects of how to restore information when we need it. Assessments, and I'll probably hit on this 2 or 3 times. The dark web scan they're talking about, if you're unsure about this, you should probably run it because it's going to be a little scary on the information that they find on the dark web about your business. We run this all the time, and we'll find 1 or 2 audience members that have hundreds of challenges that they didn't know about, especially in large organizations. So I would highly recommend asking for that quick run and just get the details so you know what's out there about you specifically. And vulnerability management, we talk about this a lot. We all have things, you know. We have email addresses, we have computers, we have a home office, we have switches and firewalls and all these things. All of them have vulnerabilities. You know, every quarter, 7,000 to 8,000 new vulnerabilities are released into the world, saying, hey, there's a problem with this type of system, and here's the problem, so the bad actors know. So we have to say, well, as soon as we find out about that, we got to fix it. We either got to patch it or decommission it, because we're opening holes for these bad actors. We're letting them know what's wrong in the world. So vulnerability management is a big thing. And assessments, when we look back, and I'll look at Clyde for a second, when we first started doing this stuff a long time ago, right, we'd run an assessment once, and then we'd maintain the network over the years. In today's world, everybody wants to plug into your network, right? They want to plug something in so they can monitor, so they can give you better information, so they can sell you something as a service. And we don't always know about it because they're pretty sneaky. They plug those systems in. Continual assessments to know what's going on in your network all the time is becoming more and more necessary so that we can defend and manage those vulnerabilities. Lots of challenges out there. All right, are you really a target? Who thinks they're a target for cybersecurity? Is anybody like, not me? It's okay, you can like internally raise your hand, we won't call you out, right? When we think about being a target, we typically think of one thing, that they're attacking me as a person. Jim Peterson, I work for ConnectWise, you know, bad actor, wants to gain my trust and attack me. Now this can happen. We call it spear phishing, or, you know, it's annoying, but hyper-personal social engineering, right? How do we really attack that person because of their role? Pretty rare. Realistically, the bad actors don't care who you are. They don't care where you work. They care that you click the link. They care that you fall for the scam, because they just want access. You likely are not their long-term target. They just want to get in the system. They want the first step. And that first step may be your email, username, and password. They can get in the system and start investigating. We'll talk about that in a second too. But this is an important piece because we think, I'm not a target, then I'm not going to spend the money, I'm not going to take the time, I'm not going to do the education to protect myself. And I become a larger target. It's kind of a vicious cycle. It's kind of painful. So, Nicholas, you talked about organized crime. And we'd say, hey, there's 3 categories of bad actors, right? There's actually more than that technically. This used to say solo hacker because that was really big for a long time. It's just, they're still out there, just not as effective compared to these other entities. Recently, we'll use some kind of reference material, the Verizon DBRR report, data breaches and incident report. They talked a lot about the end user being the new major bad actor. So we know organized crime is our #1 adversary. These are businesses overseas, they have HR departments, they have recruiting firms, they have bonus structures, they're a large, very, very sophisticated organizations. We do not want to underestimate the effectiveness and quality of organized crime. Nation states just doesn't really impact small businesses that much. They're going after other nation states, larger organizations for intellectual property. End users is the new big concern because we rarely think, is my internal team my biggest threat? And one thing we know for sure is they are, right? They are our biggest threat. They're typically the reason the organized crime get into our systems, but through malicious or unintentional methods, the end user's percentage of attacks, of creating that attack, is going up. Something to be aware of. It's very hard to see when an end user, an internal employee, is a bad actor. So how do they get in, right? How do they actually get into the system? We'll get to the cybersecurity stuff, I promise. It's just, can't do that for an hour, everybody's gonna be asleep. So first things first, environment. So obviously this is the old school way of doing it. I hacked your firewall. I accessed your computer. I did something to get onto a system. This is the vulnerability side, right? Increasing over 2024 over 2023 a little bit, right? Misconfiguration, unpatched systems, all this stuff. It's kind of the common way people get in. Then there's the human element. Credentials, username and password, right? Pretty straightforward. MFA helps a ton here. It's not 100%, but it helps a lot. So if you're not doing MFA, probably the #1 thing you can do to protect your email. Phishing. We'll talk about that in a second. But at the end of the day, right, these are the messages that come in that we need to be very, very skeptical on. Because even if we click, and I'll show you a little example, even if I click and everything looks legit and everything works afterwards, that bad actor sitting in the middle of that process, it's a bad day. Social engineering, which is probably the longest running scam of all time because everything's social engineering down when you get down to the bottom side on human element. But we underestimate how good people can be at getting you to tell something you don't want to tell. It'll be surprising. On average, 68% of the time, issues are human related. Not surprising. Everybody's probably heard that before. Everybody heard that before, like, hey, we are the problem? Yeah, we're definitely the problem. And now the interesting part is cybersecurity insurance providers know this. This is why if you don't have a security awareness training program, if you don't have multi-factor authentication, if you don't have some basic security for your endpoint, you're not getting a policy. Because they know without those things, they're gonna write a check. It's really just unfortunately a matter of time. I hate saying that, but it's just the truth. If I don't put the things into protecting as a human element, which is almost 70%, it's highly likely we're gonna have to pay out more than we're getting paid. Let's see, here's the next thing. Okay, so social engineering is an interesting piece here. And I'm just gonna play this clip. It's the Jimmy Kimmel thing. But at the end of the day, let's see if this is plays.
We're talking about cybersecurity today and how safe people's passwords are. What is one of your online passwords currently?
It is my dog's name and the year I graduated from high school.
Oh, what kind of dog do you have?
I have a small Papillon,
And what's his name?
Jameson.
Jameson. And where do you go to school?
I went to school back in Greensburg, Pennsylvania.
What school?
Hemphill Area Junior High School
Oh, when did you graduate?
in 2009. My cat's name and then just like a random number.
Okay. And you had this cat for a while?
Yeah, she's my childhood pet.
Aw. And what's her name?
Her name is Jolie.
Jolie. So like a password, yours would be Jolie and then a number.
Yeah.
Like number 1.
Like my birthday.
Oh, when is your birthday?
June.
Oh, nice. Have you already born?
95.
Oh, great. So Jolie, 6, 12, 95. Got it.
What's your drink? Spelled G-E-N-A. Italian.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, so like,
What's a good Italian password?
my grandma's name,
What's your grandma's name?
Maria.
Maria. So Maria is your password?
Oh yeah, I know my password.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if, oh,
Cybersecurity.
moving on. Okay, yeah, it's kind of funny, right? But this is real. And you'd be surprised, this is a bit that they're doing online and they got people to fall for it just with some general human interaction. If you go on YouTube or whatever, search some of the higher end social engineering hacks, you will be amazed. And I'm gonna admit, an employee that I worked with that was in IT, we walked by his desk and he's rattling off his social security number. I'm like, that's odd. HR is right over there. Why is he talking? I'm like, hey, I'm gonna leave his name out because you guys won't know him, but I don't want him to find out about this. Like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm talking to my bank. Like, what? He was being socially hacked as an IT professional sitting at his job. This isn't his problem. I mean, it is his problem. Like, what are you doing, Matt? You should know better. Oh, I said his name. Okay, but at the end of the day, right, we got to be careful because anybody can fall for this because they are very, very gifted at getting your information and making you feel like you're working with someone else. So, how do these attacks actually happen? How do these, if we think about a cybersecurity insurance company having to pay a bad actor, we'll give two quick examples. And so anything.com, right? Anything I have in my organization that goes through to the outside world that I can remote connect to. We originally used to call it like terminal servers, right? Nobody has an exposed terminal server anymore, I hope. But at the end of the day, this could be, I put a new camera system in. I didn't tell my IT team, but I put a couple cameras up and I want to get to it from the internet because it's so cool I can see it from my phone, right? Seems real easy, like this is a cool thing to do. Well, bad actors can see that. They can see everything on the internet. We think we hide IP, we do these technical things to make it so that it doesn't respond like it's supposed to, but they're pretty crafty. And once they find something, they know that there's a couple things true. We're pretty lazy, so it's probably got the default username and password on it, number one. I mean, the percentage of that is higher than we'd ever want to admit. Number two, I can do other attacks with, outside of that to try to gain access. They'll do things if it's RDP, right? Vulnerabilities there, brute force attacks, denial of services, good credentials. They just start hacking away at something. Because if I know let's say you expose this out to the internet, I can start doing some investigation, find out what company it is, do a lot of little deep dive information. And then I know more about you, and AI can help me significantly in this to speed things up. But I can do these attacks and I'll breach the security. I'll get on the system on the other side. From there, I look to elevate access. I do a lot of really technical stuff like Nicholas talked about in the really smart person world, which they sell as a service. And then I steal the data. This sounds really basic, and in all honesty, it's pretty basic. They're using scripts, they're using information that's effective to elevate access, and a lot of times we don't see it. Once they get in the network, we don't see it, and insurance companies know that. So there's a couple things we'll talk about on how you defend that, but this is the real challenge. Once they get in, once they're inside, our security is pretty lax. Now, what about the human side? So Mike's going on vacation, sets us out of office. Everybody uses out of office, right? Everybody knows to only do it internal to your team and all these kind of basic things. Maybe your contact list, but I wouldn't do that because that out of office got noticed by bad actor. Bad actor said, hey, I'm pretty smart. At 5:30 on Friday, when I know they're getting ready to fly out, I'm going to send them a password change request that needs to be done immediately. I'm going to brand it up like the company and like 365. Let's say they're using Office 365 or Microsoft 365. I'm going to send them a password reset. Mike's in the airport. He fills it out. His password gets changed. Life's good. Mike moves on. But the bad actor captured all that information, including the multi-factor authentication token, logged directly in there, starts accessing data and stealing it. This is very common. Man-in-the-middle attack is what you'll hear this called. So that's why we have to be so skeptical, because Mike didn't even know in this example that his information was stolen. The bad actor didn't want him to know. Lots of challenges out there. All right. How does this happen, right? This is what we're expected to see when a phish email comes in, right? Nobody's clicking on this. It's got all the telltale signs of a phishing email. This is what they look like today. This is what AI is helping create. write me a message as CVS saying you as a CVS customer need to complete this training. Or you'll see it from TDI, or you'll see it from a banking institution. They are extremely effective. They look like a correct message. And in fact, this domain, I may hover over that, and Nicholas just created that domain, so it's legit. It matches where it's trying to go. So all we're saying is here is we fall for it all the time. We see that little social engineering on the street thing, people falling for that, we laugh at it. We look at this and we think, oh, I might have clicked that. I use CVS for all my stuff. It's real challenging, really from Karen. So now, we talked about those bad actors, right, who they are, and a couple different ways they can get in through environments or through the human element. When they get in, the first thing they're going to do, and Nicholas hit on this, is they're going to investigate. The days of trying to immediately get $500 are over. They know the longer they're in the environment, the higher the payout is, the more likely you are to pay out. And cyber insurance companies know that too. So once they've done all their investigation, including trying to find your cyber liability insurance premium or insurance policy, like Nicholas was talking about, right? Because they want to know your limits, they want to know who they're working with. If they know the insurance provider, they know their process too. Like they're going to try to negotiate me to 50%. I know the max is 7 million. I'm asking for 7 million. I'm holding strong because I know they'll pay it. Then they'll exfiltrate your data. They're going to steal it, so they have a copy of it. And at one point, they used to just encrypt it. Now they want a copy of it. Because if we defend this successfully, once we find it, they want to have some measure of getting money. So they maybe falls to extortion or just selling your data outright. They're going to try to break your backups. I mentioned 3, 2, 1. They're going to try to break it so you cannot be in control of your restoration. You see, if there's one guaranteed way to have to pay a bad actor, is have poor backups or data protection. And most of us, if I asked, is your data backed up, everybody's raising their hands. Are you 100% sure you can restore all of your files? Most of you are going to keep your hands up. And then I'm going to say, when's the last time you tested it? Ooh, it's a good question. When we pay the bad actor, we get something like 75% of files back effectively. When we're closed for over 7 days, we're 80% likely of going out of business. Lots of challenges. So they want to break it and make you pay. Then they start messing with production. This is when we see it. That's when the ransom request comes in. On average, this takes 200 days. Talked about them taking their time investigating, exfiltrating, manipulating, and asking for that ransom request. They've been in your environment 200 days, and they've done all this stuff. You're paying them. Somebody's paying them. And it's a lot of money. We talked a little bit about money earlier, right? On average, I think the last poll was right around $1.5 million total cost, because we think of the ransom as the number one piece, right? They may ask for $500,000, they may ask for more than that. Then we have, okay, revenue disruption, all the time we spent where we weren't working, legal fees, lots of challenges out there. Trying to recover the environment, that is going to be real expensive. So, a big challenge, 200 days. Oh, and I'm going to say real quick, we see the cyber attacks. I normally say, hey, we talk about attacks, events, incidents, and breaches, kind of 4 terms, really important terms, right? An incident and a breach, the only difference is the breach got to the data. In an incident, they're in the environment and people had to respond to fix it. We have to know the difference between the two. But I'll say this, we see cyber attacks because we stop a huge percentage of them. We see ransom requests, but that's typically all we see. We don't see the ones where they got through and got all the way to the ransom request. So when we talk about some of these technologies, it's really important to say, boy, that looks like a bunch of nerdy IT terms, but this is real life. This is in your network taking information. So how do we protect ourselves, right? People, process, technology, just like the holistic cyber solution. First is technology. We think of a stack. Again, not saying this is going to be your stack. When we say stack, we're saying layered software to protect you. And you've probably heard of, obviously everybody's heard of antivirus, everybody's heard of backup. We've obviously talking about cybersecurity insurance. There's other technologies out there as well. And one of the challenges we have with small businesses, they're like, you just told me I had to buy MDR. Now you're telling me I have to buy SIM. What the heck? It's like, well, the bad actors are constantly elevating and evolving their processes, and we have to respond. Because one of the challenges is none of this stuff's 100%, none of it. I'll use an example. You know, somebody sends me an email at 5:30, I'm Mike, and I'm tired. I just wanted the workday to be over with, I click the link. I need something to back my failure up. I created an incident, or I created an event. I need something to back me up. So my security awareness training failed because I clicked the link. I need something like DNS and web filtering to kick in to stop that attack from going further. That's why we do layered technologies. We used to say the business continuity disaster recovery was the last line of defense. Used to be, but people are breaking that all the time. So now, unfortunately, cybersecurity insurance is. Everybody's goal is not to use it. Oh, yeah, process. Oh, sorry. I wanted to talk a little bit on cybersecurity insurance too. So I know a few of us raised our hands that we have a policy, few didn't. There's lots of challenges when we start talking about cybersecurity insurance. Number one is there's a common myth out there that cybersecurity insurance doesn't pay. Has anybody ever heard that, or am I the only one? They'll say cybersecurity insurance doesn't pay because they bought a bad cybersecurity insurance policy. They applied it to their business insurance, and they find out they have $50,000 of ransom coverage on $1 million ransom cost. They're like, I got 50 grand, that didn't help, and I had to pay it up front just to get the 50 grand back. Cyber insurance doesn't pay. I had $1 million policy. Well, just like anything, it's going to pay out exactly what the terms say, but unfortunately, we are typically not super educated on cybersecurity insurance on what we need to do for it. There's 3 versions of it, right? First, third, and crime. I'm not going to go into the definition on that. We need a real expert up here to talk about that, but at the end of the day, most of the time, we don't have all 3 of those covered. So first person you, third person them, crime is attack, right? If we have just first person and a crime happens, no cyber insurance payout. So some of our challenges today's world is we have these applications. And the applications come and they're really tough, so we just fill them out ourselves. And they're asking us a lot of technical questions. So we'll say 2 things. If your cybersecurity insurance application was easy, it's probably a bad policy. If it was hard, meaning you had to have help to fill it out, yes or no, maybe questions, it could be right. So just think about the process. If you raise your hand and said you had one, and be like, you know what? They asked me 3 questions. What industry am I in? What's my total revenue? And how many employees I have? You probably have a business rider. It's typically not effective for those large payouts. I already went to that. All right, couple things to think about. That rider versus full policy. I kind of hit that already. A rider just is going to be an addition to your solution. We actually never recommend those anymore. We want a full cybersecurity insurance policy because we know they have to understand your business before they can provide an insurance quote. Coverage areas. It's not just ransom. Right? It's not just extortion. There's all kinds of ways cyber insurance can help your business, including what happens if your supplier is affected by cybersecurity insurance and they can no longer ship you goods to run your business. We have coverage for that. What if we have to pay legal fees? What if I have to pay to notify and protect 1 million people over the next 2 years? Insurance for that. I'm not saying you should buy that specific insurance. I don't know your businesses, but one of the important things is to understand I have to have questions answered, and I have to have people ask me questions. So one of the things I would say is if you're not sure if your cyber insurance policy is meeting the needs of your actual business, one of the first things we want to do is an assessment, because we can use that assessment to validate the next insurance policy. When we take that to the insurance providers, we can say, hey, we have these things we are check marking as yes. How do we find the best policy now? Professional review, that comes with it. We want to make sure we're actually digging into the policy, that it's going to fit your business needs. And the last point on picking a cyber insurance provider is understand, like we said, if you don't have some basic fundamental technologies, you're likely going to get a bad premium, a bad insurance policy, or be rejected all completely. But by investing in some basic technologies, you can significantly drive that rate down. And you can get yourself a better policy all the time. So we may say, hey, right now you have antivirus. We need to move you to managed detection and response, and it's going to basically not change your rate, and you'll have better protection and a better policy. Because the cyber insurance want to have that higher end technology out there. All right, so that's the tools side of things, right? So we have the stack, and then we have cyber insurance that we apply to that stack to make sure we have kind of the bottom net at the end of the day. The next thing we can do to protect ourselves is process. I know, Clyde, you're going to talk about NIST, so I'm not going to steal too much of your thunder here. But at the end of the day, we want to have a process. Any process we make on the IT side needs to tie to something, right? Whether we're identifying it, are we finding things out there that are new to our network? Are we protecting those things properly? Are we detecting threats? Respond and recover. I'll just talk about that for a second. Respond means I had an issue, I need to do something to contain it. Recover means I return it to working order. One of the challenges we have in our world, in the MSP world and in the internal IT world, is as soon as something happens, we have an issue, we want to fix it. And one of the challenges with cybersecurity insurance is if you start fixing it, you're going to destroy the forensic evidence. You're going to destroy the evidence that tells you, hey, they started accessing these files, or they didn't access any files, this is just an incident, which would be a big win on a bad day. So understanding the difference between response and recover here is critical in an IT organization, in any organization. It's just like understanding the difference between an incident and a breach. Did they get to the data or not? Because it completely changes our whole response process, if so. A couple examples out here, that dark web scan, I'll say it one more time. I would highly recommend signing up for that. It takes minutes, and you're going to learn a lot about your organization. But also general network assessments, security assessments, vulnerability assessments. They have all types of ways of saying what's on your network. Is it dangerous? Do the bad actors have access to you? And then obviously protecting all these other ones, right? Doing basic technology, implementing MFA, security awareness training, all the basics are really important too. And then the last piece here, the last two pieces, we'll talk about two plans. Incident response plan and a business continuity disaster plan. What happens? Who do you call first if you have an issue? Who do you call? You call Zach? You call your insurance company? You call your lawyer? Call your business partner? When you're in the middle of an incident, it's scary. We've been in a lot of these, right, where we walk in and they're fully breached. We're having a really bad day and they don't know what to do. We have to know who to call.
We're going to give them a IR plan at the end.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, so Zach said you guys are getting an incident response plan at the end, so there we go. I stole his thunder, my bad. But make sure we're testing these things. Maybe we're doing tabletop exercises, which means we just sit at the table and we run through it and see where everything breaks. By doing that, we can be ready if an incident really happens. And obviously the right team. 3 skills for an IT team in 2024 and beyond. They have to really understand, know cybersecurity, how to secure data. And Nicholas, I'm going to refer to you one more time here. You said, think about where your data's at, right? And in my mind, my data is in SharePoint. But I forgot I had to drop it over to OneDrive to share it with Zach because my SharePoint policies don't let me do that. And Zach emailed it to Troy, who teams it to somebody else. Now, not only is that data outside my organization, it is completely uncontrolled. And that's one of the challenges we have with trying to control data inside an organization. I put it in the right place to begin with, and then people get involved and do everything they can to make it more difficult. So make sure they understand data protection. RTO, does anybody know what that term means? RTO, recovery time objective. You're going to get asked that if you're ever talking about a business continuity plan. What's your recovery time objective? Could be 8 hours, could be 24 hours, could be 48 hours. How fast do we need to be back up? And then we apply that. We say, unfortunately, that's a best case scenario. We need to actually do a couple different calculations like maximum tolerable downtime. I know this is Not the most exciting topic, right? But maximum tolerable downtime tells me how long my company can be down. We have to have people who understand that process, who can help you calculate that so you can build the right solution. And last is AI implementation. Real quickly on this, right? If you're using Gemini or using ChatGPT, if you're using Copilot, all kind of AI solutions, we got to make sure we understand what version we're using so we're not sending sensitive information out to the rest of the world. If you said, hey, I got this really cool document with some intellectual property on it, how can I summarize this? ChatGPT and Gemini will do that amazingly well. And now it's out in the public domain for everybody else to find. So understanding how AI is going to be used in general and in applications going forward. Somebody in your team needs to really understand that because it's going to obviously coming at a fast pace. 6 core cybersecurity steps. Things that we need to think about when we're going into the cybersecurity world, right? We would say these do 3 things. They're general best practices, right? Not everybody needs all of these, but if we're saying, I want to have a good protective system, what do I put in place? We put these 6 in. They're also going to help reduce your cybersecurity insurance premium. Because cyber insurance companies know if you implement all 6 of these, the likelihood of you being breached and then having to pay a bad actor is lower. And then last but not least, if you're in any sort of compliance world, this is going to get you down the road. If you're a CMMC, just rattle off the compliance organizations. If you're falling into that, this is going to help you down the road of that process. Incident response plan, which Zach and the team are going to give you. Manage detection and response, protecting your endpoints from bad actors, from known and unknown solutions. Multi-factor authentication and security awareness training, the 2 least expensive, most impactful things that we can do. If we are 68% of the problem, and I can reduce that down to single digits by putting multi-factor authentication on all my systems, I'm dramatically decreasing the bad actor's ability to attack me, or to at least breach me. So simple. Security awareness training, just be skeptical, say no to everything, right? The monitoring solution in the mid-tier, and obviously the recovery solution on the back end. Never let the bad actors be in control of your restoration. Make sure you're in control of it at all times. So wrapping this up, right? Cybersecurity insurance is hard. I know we only touched on a few different slides of it. It's hard because we don't quite understand it or why we really need it, right? And the benefit, and what we want, just like out of your automobile insurances, what we want with cybersecurity insurance is to have them guide us so we never have to use it. We're paying for it in case a bad day happens. So first things first, everyone's a target. We're all targets. We're being targeted all the time. Everybody got hit here while we're sitting in this room. The attackers are trying to get past us. Luckily, they haven't. Building a layered defense is going to be the best thing to make sure that one technology backs up another technology. And knowing your risks is the number 1 thing you can do to protect yourself. Understand your environments, what you have in them, how you work, what vulnerabilities you specifically have. If you know your risks, you're going to be better well to defend them. And that's it. All right. Thank you very much.